Hi all, this is CA Shafeekh Nilail, Leader PDC at Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, Abu Dhabi Chapter. I have with me Mr. Markus Susilo, Partner Tax at Crowe, UAE. Hi Markus.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Shafeekh.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So with the introduction of corporate tax in the UAE, so could you briefly talk about the transfer pricing side of it?
Okay. Well, it's an interesting question. The way I look at it is that this transfer pricing concept is one of the concepts that cannot be separated with the introduction of corporate tax, because this is one of the mechanisms for the government to ensure that when you have a transaction between affiliated entities, that there is still a fair amount of share, or let's say the correct amount of tax that is paid to the government, and in this case is the UAE government. Especially if you look at the consultation paper recently, that they were saying, okay, let's say free zone would have a different taxation regime, or certain companies will have different taxation regime than, let's say, the other type of companies. Now, this is where this transfer pricing concept will be even much more important to ensure that there is no erosion of the tax base for the UAE. Now, the second aspect to that as well is that when it comes to cross-border transaction between affiliated companies, so that it is an important mechanism as well to ensure that the UAE government get a fair share of the tax in comparison to the other jurisdiction. So I think this should be an important part of the corporate taxation once it is introduced, once we have it in the UAE, that people should not take it lightly.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah.
So, adding to that, what key challenges you see in transfer pricing in the context of, again, UAE corporate tax?
Well, I would say there is one main challenge that is, I think, is not only for the UAE, but also this region in general, is the comparable, to find the right comparables. But when we have to do benchmarking, so since some of the data in this part of the world is still kept very confidential, especially to the third parties. So it might be quite some challenge to find comparable transactions and companies later on, and then to ensure that the arm's length price is basically being implemented. And this would be a challenge for both the tax authority and also the companies.
Oh, okay. Okay, and one last question. So with the introduction of more compliance requirements in the UAE, would that discourage the foreign business to come into UAE?
Yeah. I think one should not think that way. I think it should be seen on the contrary to that. Just to give you also, let's say, a more factual background of what my earlier statement was. Last year we did a small research on the impact of the regulation that has been, or the correlation of the regulation and compliance requirement that has been introduced by the UAE government and the inflows of the FDI into the countries. What we have found is actually the more the regulation or the more compliance requirement are being introduced into the UAE, the more FDI inflows are coming into our country here. Now, I think one of the most important things that you need to realize is that, let's put yourself in the shoes of foreign investors. You would want to make sure that you have a certain level of certainty and transparency in the jurisdiction that you are investing in, investing from. And with the regulation that have been introduced, this have added this. The way I look at it, it has added, let's say, more and more confidence to the foreign investor, and therefore the foreign direct investment inflows I expect to actually even increasing in terms of the numbers in the coming years.
Okay, so that means you see a positive impact.
Yes, I do
on
see.
account of this.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Markus. Thank you very much.
Okay.